All right. Hi, everyone. I think we just got started. Gina from Rep Genius is actually in the backstage producing and helping me with the backstage. Unfortunately, she's not feeling well. So thank you for coming in, Gina, and helping me in the background. But hi, everyone. So I'm Trinity, and I think we just started. We're probably going to give folks 1 or 2 more minutes to trickle in, and we can get started. If you don't mind, kind of introduce yourself in the chat where you're calling or like joining from, just so I could see like who's here. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat as well, and I'll try to tackle them as I go through the content. Hi, Max. Arizona. I actually spent 7 years in Arizona. It's very nice. Just seeing someone from Arizona right now. Hi, Alan. Fun fact, I'm actually joining from Vietnam. I'm visiting my parents for the holiday. So right now it's 3 a.m. uh, we'll try to bring the energy and get it going. Oh, hi. Okay. Evening time in Tel Aviv. Thanks for joining, George. In San Francisco. Yes, Vietnam is beautiful. Um, I just wish I had more daytime because I'm still working EST. So my workday starts at 9 p.m. and ends at 5 or 6 a.m. So I haven't seen a lot yet, but the parents are happy. So, oh, from India, Melbourne. Oh my goodness, it's pretty late for you too. All right. We're 2 minutes into the event, and that's a lot of content I want to share with you. I'm very passionate about this. So if I speak too fast, if you have questions, please feel free to drop in the chat. The way Air Meets, the webinar software works, once I share screen, I can't really see the chat on the side the way that Zoom does. So I'll try to share every section or so to make sure that I can capture the questions and answer them as quickly as I can. So let's make it interactive because I think hopefully you find the playbooks helpful and interesting because I definitely love these things. So all right, so the content today, so quick introduction. My name is Trinity Nguyen. I am the CMO at UserGems. We are a software to help companies with outbound. So we work with a lot with sales and marketing and RevOps teams in different B2B companies, SaaS and non-SaaS. And so today for the content, as we wrap up 2024, planning for 2025, I want to share 5 playbooks that we know work because we've been living and breathing this and we measure everything. And I'll show you like how we report to the board. The playbooks will start from beginner level, where it's very simple, something you can spin up in just like a day or two, get some quick wins. And then we will ramp up to kind of intermediate and then we get really sophisticated. And there's some like fun stuff at the end. Um, all right, so I will start sharing the screen now. Let me see. All right. Double checking that you guys seeing the screen. All right. So just to set some context, I feel like at this point, everyone knows that outbound is challenging. I don't think I need to tell anyone here because I'm sure the reason you join is because you're living and breathing this as much as I am. Um, this stat still scares me though. This is a stat from Insight Partners, one of the top VCs for B2B SaaS. And they've been measuring like how many activities it takes to book an outbound meeting. So if you 5 years ago, so like 2019, you need about like, I would say like about 300 activities to book an outbound meeting. And now this stat actually came from, I think it's almost a year now. It takes 4 times more activities. So that means you can also think about it like the outbound result that you're seeing today, it will continue to decrease over time if you don't change anything. I think it's time to really shake things up and kind of like rethink how we do outbound to kind of like change this trajectory. So at UserGems, we have a lot of data and we have a data scientist team. So we call UserGems Labs to kind of just look into this. So compared to 2020, across hundreds of companies. We actually look into like millions of opportunities, contacts, etc. And we found that compared to 2020, today it takes 3 times longer, like more days. And you've seen the sales cycle getting longer in the last couple of years. And then on top of it, it's harder to justify for budget. So in order to get a deal happen, you need to make a stronger business case across the organization. So therefore, reps need to contact 50% more prospects to even get an opportunity created. And then after that is multi-threading to build a business case. And this, I think this meme is pretty timely right now. So as everyone doing their planning and targeting for next year, so we need to grow 2 times next year. It's a new year. Let's accelerate growth. And by the way, stay with the same exact budget. So I think this is something that a lot of companies are hearing right now. A lot of marketing sales leaders are hearing right now. So how do we figure out how to make outbound work? Because it is one of the levers that we have as the revenue leaders. At the same time, um, not spending a lot, staying efficient. So I'm not trying to like doom and gloom because I know that there are companies out there that have figured out how to make outbound work. Sometimes they actively sharing on LinkedIn, etc., in communities, but sometimes they just kind of like keep doing their things. And these are some of the stats. I know that these companies have figured out how to make outbound work. Lean data, Mimecast, diligent, and user testing. And the common trend across some of these companies is that instead of doing the usual outbound, reaching out to all the accounts and contacts, they start using signals to prioritize which accounts to go after, when, and why. So if you think about like how we do outbound in the old way since like 2002, when Salesforce came about. So essentially, like just need to figure out who, figure out your account ICP, figure out your persona job titles, and then you go at it. The more activities you do, the more likely you're gonna hit quota. So you all like if you've been in sales, you hear it. Just trust the process. Just put in the work, and then like the meeting's gonna, the quota is gonna happen. But that's not enough anymore. So the new way of doing it today is you have the who, so you know account ICP criteria. Then you also need to know the titles, right? So the same, but now you need to use signals, trigger events to figure out when to reach out to these accounts and people. And then the third one is why, the context. And this is where you get personalized outreach, but also relevant. And this is how companies are using this to prioritize. So one of the questions that I've been hearing is like, everyone's like, yeah, we hear signals, signals, signals all the time in the last 12 months, but what is it? So the way that we defined it at UserGems is like signals are interesting moments. So there's a time component that indicates a buyer is more open to evaluating new solutions like yours. So there's a time and then their inclination to like evaluating tools or services. The next question I usually hear is like, are signals just intent data showing that people have intent? The answer is no, because intent is just one of the many signals. So intent essentially is when someone's searching for keywords relevant to your product category, therefore implying that they researching you or they visit your website. But there are other signals that, to be honest, like if you ask your best performing reps, they will tell you they look at these things to figure out how to break into their target accounts. So there's a huge universe of signals that tell you when to reach out to these companies. And the way we define it at UserGems is we break them into people signals and account signals just to keep it simple. So people signals, these are contact level signals. So for example, when your customer change their job and join a new company, past champion, because you know exactly the person. If there's a new hire and promotion at their account, who else should be involved in the buying group? So the multi-threading, the website visitor at the contact level, referrals, like any warm intros, and there's a lot more, right? As long as you can pinpoint to the contact level who it is, that's the people signals you can use. Account level signals, this is where you see most of the intent is account level signals, like this company is researching. Maybe they'll tell you the location of the person, but they don't tell you who. So you need to do a lot of like triangulation to figure out. Or maybe they just researching your company to apply for a job there. But it's at the account level. Hiring for a specific role, the company is hiring, funding, M&A, website visits at the account level. This company compete with your customers. This company has a previous close loss or churn opportunity with you, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of signals, and there's no one size fits all. For most of companies, you kind of have to figure out like which signals matter the most to your business. For example, a company like WorkRamp, for example, they are an HR solution, um, and it's kind of like the infrastructure type of solution. Um, and it's very because it's infrastructure, it's actually really hard to rip and replace unless there's a new chief HR officer joining the company, because that's when that person coming in with a new strategy, with a budget, they want to change things around. So for them, the new hire is actually a really important signal, because that is their moment to like break into the accounts. Because once the chief HR officer is set with the solution that they brought in, very unlikely that they're going to rip it out and change it, because the change management would be just too hard. So like depending on the business, you kind of need to figure out like which ones are the most relevant for your business. So that's all nice and hearing all these concepts, but we're here because we want to figure out how to build pipeline, right? So conversion rates. Um, we have we put together this big report of like different conversion rate by signals. So I'll put the link at the end that you can check it out. But some of the popular conversion rates is past champions convert between 2 to 3 times higher than your average leads. This one, if you follow UserGem, is a broken record. This is a hill I'm going to die on, because we used it at my last company. It's always the second best converting channel after demo requests. Um, all the companies that you saw the logos earlier, some of the real large companies like user testing, MindPath, etc., always in the top 3 performing channel. So if you're not doing this, please do it. Tool or no tool, doesn't matter. Just build this program, and we'll talk about that piece in a bit. Next one is new hire and promotions. So new hires, there's a stat that new hires spend 70% of their budget in the first 90 days. This makes sense too. If they knew they had the budget, they have the strategy, like I mentioned, so they're more willing to make change, implement, show quick wins in the first 90 days. So we have a stat also to show that if you reach out in the first 90 days versus like you wait 6 months later, the drop is 2.5 times steep. It's a really steep drop. So with January coming around, at UserGem, we also monitor like job changes across all industries. And you can see this spike every year in the last like 5, 10 years. The job change will always happen throughout the years, but once January comes around, there's a huge spike. Doesn't matter which industry you're in. So since it's December, you might want to like bring this into your playbooks for January for your team. And then the next one is multi-thread, the buying group. We found that multi-threaded ops have 5 times higher win rates than single-threaded ones. I think this one is pretty straightforward. You have more departments pulling in the budget, make the business case to be like company-wide, more likely to win, and also bigger deal size. For the account level signals, I think sales teams usually do this. Like if you have a customer, they usually find the competitors of the customers, to kind of like, hey, your competitor is working with us, you should check us out as well. Pretty straightforward. But we look into the stats. So when you reach out to the competitors of your customers, you have already a lift in the conversion rate here compared to like just cold accounts. But we found also a fun fact that if you mention the customer's name in the email, then you get another boost. So comparing to cold outbound here with a random account, maybe ICP, mentioning the customers in the email, you get a 2.5x higher conversion rate. So as you can see, when you start combining all these like higher conversion rate, then this is how you kind of like layer cake and building out your outbound pipeline. So this is actually from one of our board meetings. We track So the way we track it, the inbound and outbound. So the majority of our pipeline comes from outbound, as you can see. We pulled the user gems out because it's our product, so we kind of want to see how it works, how it performs over time. But essentially, we use user gems to feed into outbound. So if you can combine these two rows, this is how we can kind of use how we build our outbound program at user gems. And you can see that it kind of like as we're adding more and more signals, the contribution to the pipeline grows as well. And yes, the pipeline never went down. So the percentage didn't grow because the total pipeline went down. We're also tracking efficiency ratio as well to make sure that $1 spent in marketing generate at least $10 in qualified pipeline. So this is how we kind of keep the lever of like generate more, but also keeping the spend efficient. All right, we're going to segue over to the playbooks. I'll check real quick in the chat if there's any question. So Wayne, just say, I think it's really easy to get distracted with timing or intent data instead of focus on the real ICP. 100%, 100%. At one of my last slides, I kind of have a checklist of what are the steps you need to do before you pulling in the intent or the signals, etc. There's a lot of signals, so like you really need to figure out like who's your ICP, your persona, to set the guardrails. Once you like define that, that's when you kind of like, okay, I have this list of accounts I know are a good fit. Now, how do I prioritize them? So signals help you prioritize. If you start from signals, it's very easy for you to like get signals from an industry or a geo that not a good fit, etc. So when you are correct, what is the difference at UserGems between outbound and AE prospecting? Good question. So at the board level, we keep the reporting pretty simple, inbound, outbound UserGems, so like everyone can understand, because not all investors or board members, familiar with the intricacies. But within the team, we track by programs. So our AE does do prospecting, but as you see earlier, it's a smaller percent, so like around 10, 12, 13%. And that means they select their own accounts that they want, kind of like we call like pet accounts or whatever it takes accounts. They can select it and they can go after it when they want. So that's the difference. Versus user gems is we use mostly programmatically for the marketing and SDR team, ADR. Hope that answers your question. But now the AEs are now doing prospecting more programmatically, and they now pulling in signals as well. So we're trying to make it like AE prospecting more consistent, always on, to keep that like to help the team maintain that muscle. All right. So the 4 playbooks, and I know I promised 5, and there's a bonus one at the end. So to start, like beginner, right? The past champions at new company, this is so like really easy to set up. You can use tools, you don't have to use tools. Just set it up for your team, or like just do it, please. It's like found money. I've seen so many companies that it's just gonna be something that the lowest hanging fruit for your marketing, your BDR sales team. So what we track is like past champions joining when they join an ICP account, then we add them to a sequence. And we build out the sequence template for the team as well to make it as easy as possible. One thing to note here, when people hear about like champions, they think about the advocates, the creme de la creme of your customers. From the early days when for UserGen 5 years ago, when we had very few customers, we already started tracking everyone. So we track customers, we track close lost opportunity contacts, open up contacts, user, power user, etc. The thinking is, as long as you track them and you tag them correctly, and then train your team so they know how to talk to different audience, these contacts are already so much warmer than any other leads that you can find anywhere else, because they already problem aware, solution aware, and therefore they have talked to your team. Even if they didn't buy then, the next company might be a better fit, et cetera, et cetera. So I would encourage to think about these buckets a little bit broader than oh, I just want the customers, the one who signed, etc. So for us, we've been running this play for 5 years. The stats you see here have not changed. So for this play, the open rate, the lowest open rate for the coldest past champions we've had is a 60 to 75% open rate, and reply rate, the lowest we've seen with this play is 15%. Before 20, I think before this year, I think it got up to 28 to 30%, and now it's hovering between 24 to 26% reply rate. This is always on. It runs every single week, every single month at UserGems. Doesn't matter if some channel going up or down, this single play always consistent. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds too good to be true, but please do it because hundreds of companies been doing it. I've been watching this play. It works, and it's really easy to set up. We like to do marketing and sales together at UserGems to keep things aligned, and then the more channels we can surround our buyers, the better. So we also add the same contacts here. Like when they get added to sequence, like outreach sequence, we also add them to advertising and just kind of air cover, remind them like, hey, congrats on your role, remember us, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of like surround the buyer. All right, I'm going to get really tactical on the sales email side because whoever's attending the session right now, if you're on the marketing side, we usually just think about like the programmatic stuff. But the sales emails, as mundane it sounds, is kind of like where a lot of conversion rate comes through. So typical sales email, when you see like someone change their jobs, and this is where you hear a lot on LinkedIn where this signal doesn't work anymore. It's because they're seeing emails like this. Congrats on new role, open to a quick chat. Kind of very generic, and to be honest, like a little bit lazy prospecting. When you do signal-based messaging, you have more context. So the who, when, why. So congrats on new role. We'll miss you at Salesforce. Any insight you can pull in. You send a gift because that's human touch. And do not ask for a meeting. You got to deposit into the bank before you can withdraw it. Because it's a sequence, you can circle back in 2 to 4 weeks later. It's like, hey, how are things going, et cetera, et cetera. Very simple play. You can just build out a sequence, your best performing sequence, just swap out a couple of emails. The rest of the sequence is just like, value prop, calling, LinkedIn, etc. So this is the play that's been around forever. And I just saw this LinkedIn post 5 days ago. I took this screenshot this morning. And this is one of the customers, and they follow that same kind of playbook, reaching out, congrats, don't push too hard, etc. And it works. And the one on the right is another screenshot that one of our customers sent it over to us today. Like, really awesome email, love the personalization. Personalization here is just like you show them that you know them, who they are, just the context. Perfect timing, blah, blah, blah. So when you do it right, it works. Doesn't matter if anyone ever tell you that the signal is commoditized or saturated. Because these are your customers, these are your contacts. So it's not your competitor's contacts. So this play will continue to work, doesn't matter if the other signals kind of get saturated or not. Us here. What do we do for gifts? We use gifting platforms. We're using Sendoso, and they have a functionality where it's like a party link where you could embed it. So our video team doesn't need to choose gifts. Like we automate this. So we tier it depending on the relationship and seniority. They will have a different link in there that has a different gift selection. So it could go from something like a coffee, a gift card, to like some kind of like, gift like $50, $75, etc., depending on the relationship. So it's really what works for you. For some industries, like gifting is a little bit more sensitive. So like cybersecurity, for example, or if you sell to EMEA. So sometimes people would send like books as a way of like kind of like, still a gift or a checklist or a cheat sheet for someone to succeed in the first 90 days in their role. So it really depends on your persona, and you can choose the right gift and then just programmatically roll it out. All right. Next one is kind of intermediate, a little bit more complex just because you start combining a little bit more. So we love display, revive, close lost. So if an account has a previous close lost, to us, we treat that as a signal because that means that they interested in us at some point, but not just alone, right? We have a close loss nurture. I think most B2B company have some type of close loss nurture, but we start layering in signals. So if an account with previous close loss suddenly have a past champions joining that has a strong relationship, or they have a new hire coming in, then we remove that account from the regular close loss nurture that always on in the background and prioritize them so that the BDR can reach out to them sooner. Or if it's a previous close loss and suddenly start visiting your website on high value pages. So the emphasis is high value pages. If they just visit your website to read a blog post, like don't, that's not signal. So figure out like what are the high value pages, and when you see this kind of combination happen, then you can enroll, re-engage with that account. So we have sequence for like we call the revive the dead in outreach. The team like immediately know like this is what they need to do. This is what they need to say in the email. We do the same thing for churn accounts as well. Churn account is a little bit more complex because it's not completely automated, right? We want to make sure that the CSM is involved so we get all the context of why they churn so that we can address it head on when we reach out. So since we already talked about the new hires and past champion, I want to focus on like this one, previous close loss, visiting the website. So you hear a lot about website visitors on LinkedIn, how you engage with it. And people are saying that website visit doesn't work. People like to say like everything doesn't work. But it doesn't work because you see emails like this. Again, another lazy prospecting. That's like, quick question, our favorite subject line. Then notice that someone from so-and-so is on our website. Do you want to call? Or like, so-and-so intent tools telling me that there's a spike of activities from your company. Like, should we schedule a call? That is just lazy prospecting. You're not been doing anything. So this email on the right this is a real email that our team sent out. So we saw it's a close loss. They came back visiting some of our high value page, including competitive comparison page. So we reach out and say like, hey, we noticed that like we talked to you because so like hope the year's been treating you well. Like, how have you been? Right? We know acknowledge that we know them. We've had a ton of product releases since your last conversation with us. So that's the signal here, like when the close loss happened. I love the chance to showcase the new functionalities. So down here is because we know that they were checking like our competitive comparison page, UserGems versus ZoomInfo, for example. Then we subtly mention some of the pain points that people see with our competitors in the email. And then we noticed that one of our customers used to work at this company. So we mentioned like, hey, your former coworker, Kyle, is using us at Okta. Maybe you can reach out to him for thought. So we layer in multiple signals to make the email very contextual. And when you kind of like do it like that, you get an email like, hey, it's like you were part of our chat this morning. You don't spook them out by saying that I saw that you on our website. In a way, you manufacture coincidence. And this is what happens when you actually are combining signals properly to make outbound work. I'll pause there before the next playbook. Any question? No? All right. I'll go to the next one. So this one is more complex. So we go into like intent and ABM. And I'm trying to go a little bit quicker. So ABM accounts, intent, we layer on all the signals, kind of like what you've seen earlier. We find all the past champions there, all the new hires, and then anyone else in the buying group that we need to multi-thread to. Then we combine with, is there any previous close loss notes? Are they a competitor of our customers? And then we add all of that into a sequence that our rep reach out. And then in addition to that, we figure out, is there any customer that can refer us to this company because they used to work there, and ask for a warm intro. So this is literally how we run our ABM campaign. We find all of these contacts based on here, and all the context here, and all of that information is packaged up and added to our ABM sequence. So rep has all the information there for their outreach. For the marketers, we use these signals to prioritize accounts. So like someone said earlier, we define our ICP very early on. So we have a list of like 10,000, 15,000 accounts that fit our ICP. We go after them with ABM every quarter. We're trying to target around like 500 to 600 accounts. So it's really important to us to know which 500 accounts we want to prioritize for Q1, for example. So what we do it, so signals essentially just data. So in our Salesforce environment, we capture all these signals, and these have points. And that's how we do account scoring. So we have a dynamic report in Salesforce that at the end of the quarter, our ABM manager and our SDR manager just go into that report and grab the top 500 accounts in that report because it has the most signals, it has the most scores. They sit down, manually review it a little bit to see if it makes sense, anything we want to exclude. And then we run and build the ABM campaigns and prepare the SDR team for outreach. So like, for example, like Symphony AI, we would target because we saw that there are 6 previous champions that are there. They recently hired 8 new people. We know that we have some warm intros that we can tap into. Or Twilio, we see that they visited the pricing page recently. They have new high champions, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how we use the signals to kind of like score and prioritize accounts. And kind of similar, it's the same thing. The signal-based messaging we use, we kind of just continuously referencing the signal because that's just an easier way and more like methodical way for the sales team to make your outbound email like contextual and relevant. Was there? Yeah, Billy, sorry. Yep. ABM is account-based marketing, but it's a program that sales like SDR and marketing do together to tackle the account. So we define like which accounts we want to go after, and then marketing will start running ads on one end, and then SDR will start reaching out, prospecting. And we want to do it at the same time to make sure that we surround the buyers in all channels. All right. So the ABM one is actually like the most complex one to set up. If you want to chat more, feel free to send me a LinkedIn message. We have a lot of content in this one we've been sharing over the years. For Playbook 4, this one, if you are responsible for the retention side, or you want to support your CS team on the retention side. So we use the same data. I mean, it's very similar signals, right? But we apply to customer accounts instead of target accounts. So when there is a new exec joining our customer account, we trigger in HubSpot some nurture, an email being sent out from our CEO or myself, or our head of CS, and say like, hey, welcome to company X. Our 2 teams been working together. Just want to reach out and say hi, introduce myself as an extra resource. CSM, your CSM going to reach out soon to give you more context on how we've been working together. But if you want to chat, feel free to send me a note. So this is how we help the CSM to multi-thread into the customer accounts, especially at the exec level. Because what usually happens, at least in SaaS, is you have the decision maker and budget holder in the sales process. You sign, you implement, and then usually within a month or 2, the decision maker delegate to someone in their team to be your point of contact. So the CSM point of contact and champions typically below the line for a lot of companies. And the CSMs are sometimes just scared of reaching out to the C-level or VP, etc. We do a lot of training to help CSM overcome that, but having some kind of automation like this to connect peer to peer, make this whole like multi-threading a lot more natural and helps you build out like more champions within the organization, new additional renewal and expansion opportunity. So we're running this, and it's really simple. It's the same kind of like signals that you've been hearing all day, applying to customer accounts, and you can build out in just HubSpot or Marketo. Right. All right, on to the last playbook. This one is bonus, and I think this one is probably like the ones that definitely need to be saved for last, even though everyone right now is talking about it. Like it's the first thing you should do, AI. But I'll explain a little bit. So as you can see, like as we start like building out playbook by playbook, you start out something simple, and then you layer on signals, and then you see that there's a universe of signals that you can combine and make, mix it up. What happens is that it's fun for us as the managers or on the marketing side to build out this campaign, but it's really, really hard for reps to consistently remember how many signals they can pull in, et cetera, how many plays, which plays to prioritize. I've heard a stat that for SDR team, at any given point in time, they can only handle between 3 to 4 plays at any given point in time. So you think about like demo request nurture, close loss, et cetera, et cetera. It becomes a lot because there's hundreds and thousands of prospects they have to keep track of. So what we found is that like 85% of opportunities are missed because reps just don't reach out to accounts that have the signals that relevant to them. It's just impossible, especially if each rep is responsible for like 1,000 target accounts. But this is where I think this is where AI can really, really help. I know like everyone wants to roll their eyes when they hear about AI, but I think it could work if we set up the right guardrails and all the programs. If you have the right outbound strategy, kind of using signal to prioritize and spear phishing instead of spray and pray, then AI becomes a tool that can help you. So the way we set it up using the AI is, so we tier out the accounts. So we have the ICP account list, use signal to prioritize it, but then we layer on some like business logic to tier the account to 1 to 2 to 3, right? And I'll tell you what those are in a bit. And then we look into like, look at the workflow of your sales team. What do they have to do to outbound, the step by step? So usually like they gotta find accounts, prioritize, enrich them, contact, add them to sequences, then draft the email, figure out the call scripts, LinkedIn message, etc. All that insights, right? And then send. So for us, the tier one, these are the strategic enterprise accounts, small volume. This is relevant if you have a small TAM. So then we want AI to help us like monitoring all the ICP accounts to figure out the ones that have the most signals, like what I mentioned earlier for the ABM programs, to prioritize those accounts. Then find contacts that are persona matching, enrich them. Potentially, you can also add them automatically into the sequence if you know what sequence works best. And then potentially you can use the AI to draft message and all that stuff, basically doing as much manual tasks, like as many manual tasks as possible for your team. The parenthesis is like optional. And then making sure that there's a way for your team to find the context. Like, okay, if you add people into my sequence for me, draft message, at least give me the context of like why I'm seeing this company right now, just so that they can be informed and then edit the draft emails, etc., before they send it out. So this is the tier one. Tier two, these are the transactional layer. So still a good fit, larger volumes, probably like SMB. Then we use it, AI, for all the way from prioritize, automatically add them to sequence, draft the emails for the reps to review, provide all the context so they have, more information about the account. And then for some of them, we automatically send, and some of them we let the reps kind of like have a chance to like review it. Tier three, these are the long ends. Experiments, we're trying out new industry, new geo, etc. It's low priorities. Then the same thing, prioritize and enrich, add them to sequence, draft email. We don't need to provide context because no one's going to review it, and it's sent. So when you hear about co-pilots, all these buzzwords, it's essentially for us, this is the part where we use AI to help us here. And when you hit autopilot, it's like the tier 3 down here when it goes all the way to the end. And it sounds maybe a little bit crazy, but it's actually already been running for us. And we've been running it for like a month and a half or so. And 5% of our meetings booked in November alone just came from this play here. We didn't even touch it. So when you do AI right, this is the kind of message you should see. And also, I got all these messages from our customer quote channel. It's like, hey, you did your research, or I really appreciate the research she did. They send it to a manager before sending it. Or like, for sure, like these are all real responses. So I think when AI or AI SDR get a bad rap is when you don't have the right strategy for outbound and you just use the tool, then it just becomes spray and pray on steroid. But if you get the right strategy and the right approach, the right signals, AI is just going to expand the capacity of your team. So our SDR and AE team used to have a 1-to-1 ratio for various reasons, like our teams, there are a lot of paternity and maternity leave right now. And at the same time, this is when we kind of roll out the AI as well. And we've been able to deliver on the pipeline that we need from the SDR with just half of the area team. So we get 1-to-2 ratio. So I'll pause there a little bit before I get to the final slide. If there's any question on the AI side, wonder if anyone is a skeptic, because I was a skeptic for the longest time. All right. So last stretch. So checklist to kind of like recap all this stuff. You want to start doing like signal based, building on your pipeline, or rebuild your pipeline program, or starting to build your outbound program. Sorry, it's almost 4 a.m. So I'm a little bit so the checklist is first, you got to figure out like your ICP criteria, the fit persona. This is fundamental. If you don't have this first box done right and nailed down and aligned with the entire revenue team, none of the programs going to work and you're going to waste a lot of money. Then based on this, you build out the account list. Third step, this is where signals come in. So you start monitoring these account lists and contacts for signals. Once you set that up and you start thinking about like what campaigns or plays based on these signals that you want to run, start small, get some quick wins. This is how you build buy-in internally before you start scaling complexity. The past champion is the easiest thing to set up. Try with that one, and then you start layer on. We actually start building campaigns for each signal individually at the beginning, like new hire campaign, past champion campaign, website visit campaign. And at some point, it got really big. I think we got to like 40 plus campaigns just based on signals. And then that's when we kind of like combining them and redoing the outbound program altogether. Then look into like your team, like how many repetitive manual tasks that they're doing to get to the real job, aka like prospecting. Like if you see a rep doing something over and over and over again, figure out how to automate it. And then only at the end is where you can kind of like, now that you have all these foundation, look into the AI, SDR AI agents to expand the capacity of your team. You have the strategy, you have the play. Now you figure out which ones you want humans to do it and spend a lot of like valuable hours on it versus AI or a hybrid. And for AI to work where it doesn't go on its own and burn down your entire team, set the guardrails to prevent the spray and pray. So we set very clear guardrails when we set up the AI. It's like, this is the buying group, exactly the buying group, like the size, you're not going to go more than this. The brand guidelines, tone, et cetera, et cetera. And then we also set like how many emails can be sent out through our AI agent to make sure that we don't ruin our email deliverability. Again, even with AI, right? Like start really, really small. The smaller set, better, so that you can learn quickly and it can learn quickly as well. Low risk before you start scaling it out. And that's basically it. Some free resources. Actually, if you go to usergems.com, you will see that report on the banner to learn more about the signals, the conversion rate by each signal. If you want to figure out, like, we have we call a free data test. You can connect to your CRM and you can find out like how many signals you're missing, aka how much pipeline that you could be generating going into next year. So usergems.com data test. And that's basically it. Uh, so Gina, I think there's a question, like, we will get access to the deck or the recording post-webinar. I'm assuming the answer is yes. So um, if you don't get it, I know Gina's not feeling well, but if you don't get it, feel free to message me on LinkedIn. I'll send the deck over to you, and I'll ask Gina for the recording as well. All right. Nice to hear, Bennett. Um, yeah, looking forward to connect with you and see what you guys building. I really think that B2B, like, I think that outbound is prime right now. Like, we have no choice but rethink how we do outbound. The old, like, activity volume, get a yellow book and just dial everyone. I don't think it's going to work with all the automation. Everyone can do the same thing. It doesn't work anymore. So we need to figure out how to make outbound work. So I'm excited to see all the evolution and tech and startups are coming out in this space to help us make outbound work again. All right. I think we at time. So thank you for hanging out with me today, end of month, end of year, right before the holiday. So if you have any questions, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Just Trinity Nguyen. Thanks, everyone.